I'm Jason Harmon, and this is API Intersection, where you'll get insights from experienced API practitioners to learn best practices on things like API design, governance, identity, auth, versioning, and more. Welcome back to API Intersection. So it's funny, over the course of the year and change we've been doing the podcast here. I think our most common refrain is that these sort of big transformations when it comes to using APIs to maybe redefine your company as a platform. Um, the hard part's not tech; it's quite often the culture. So I'm particularly intrigued today to talk with Sachin Castelino, our guest from InSolutions Global, who is their Chief Strategy and Transformation Officer. So, Sachin, thanks so much for taking time to join us.
Thank you for having me.
And my co-host, as always, Anna. Thanks again.
Pleasure to be here.
All right. So, Sachin, you're at InSolutions Global, which I know in some sense, the in InSolutions is India, and there's payments, and there's all kinds of interesting global countries y'all are in. But tell me more about it.
Yeah, so ISG at ISG we provide real time payment services to financial institutions, and now we're expanding that to merchants, to government entities, and to education institutions as well. And as we go along, we're further trying to expand that. And I have been in the organization now for the last decade, a little over a decade now. And I've been in job rotation within the organization, right? So I've done work in HR, project management, technology, and product, and that's where I got introduced to understanding product and all the products that we do, and payments can can get very complex very quickly, right? And the technology change that is constantly there is absolutely phenomenal. But where I started to actually learn how to potentially manage these technology triggers was when I took over in 2016. I took over doing our international business and sales. All right, so this was now more of a customer facing role, and go, okay, just understand from the customer what is it that they're trying to achieve, and because of my product background, I was like, okay, now this is how we try and deliver it. What I realized throughout that is that while customers say that, oh, this is what we want, actually, because they don't know everything that's out there, right? So what ends up happening is that there's an underlying pain point behind those solutions that they're talking about, and looking at that underlying pain point and then creatively coming up with something is something that ISG has been working on with customer centricity in mind.
So it's kind of remarkable. You don't hear a lot of product people that take on a sales role or a business development role directly. What did you learn from that experience, and what would you share with other product people who would be interested in that?
Yeah. So see, for me, I think so. When I was in the product side, right? So what we used to do initially, saying calling it customer centricity, we used to do whatever the customer said, right? So uh, in a way, it worked because we were constantly innovating with what the customer is saying that we should do. We always then had a customer for whatever we built, right? The challenge that we face with that is that sometimes adoption was not there for like, so it's there for one customer, but it's not going across, right? And we weren't able to pinpoint exactly why this is happening. We're like, okay, this and customers obviously are very knowledgeable about what is it that they want and what is it that they're trying to get built, and we were just wondering as to what is it that we're doing incorrectly, right? So from a product standpoint, we were always like running and trying to chase deadlines and trying to get that done. when I moved into sales, right, that's when I started to understand the abstract nature of some of these conversations, right? So the customers themselves are just trying to figure this out, right? So they see a pain point, then they're like, oh, okay, let's try and find a solution like this, right? And more often than not, as tech, all we see is that face of that. Oh, this is the solution that is needed. We don't see that thinking that goes behind in trying to get to that solution. From a sales standpoint, I got like insight into seeing how they talk about their pains and how they're like, okay, this is what we're facing a challenge with. How do we solve this? All right, so getting involved in that conversation and that abstract conversation with a product background, that helped me. That helped me massively, and it is what is driving a lot of my strategy and transformation work throughout the organization.
There's two things in there about the job of product that I love that you touched on. One is don't build a better horse, right? Like find
Yeah,
out what job they're trying to do and build something that solves the problem. Don't just ask what they want because that
yeah,
often is not as good of a result as it could be. And two is talk to your customers. It's
yeah.
shocking how many product teams never actually talk to a customer, and
Correct.
it's impossible to figure out what they want that way.
Mm.
Um, so the other thing that you were touching on in there, I think, is very simply that that reuse is one of the most important things in building products. And to your point, it sounds like you were building a lot of kind of more single use case bespoke things for particular customers. And to
Mm.
me, that's like the heart of building platforms. So is that kind of, been this shift for you guys in platform thinking?
Yes. So I think for us, yes, the doing what the customer says sort of approach gave us sustainability in terms of longevity. But we were obviously having a challenge with scalability, right? So our ability to scale across firstly across the nation and then across the globe without a platform thought process that wouldn't come in. So the mindset shift, from at least from my perspective, was to start to use models, right? So there's a great communication model that is the business model canvas and all the things that are around that, right? There's a customer proposition, value proposition, and then the entire design thinking approach, um, which I've started to now get all stakeholders involved with it. So it's sales to product to even developers and operations, right? So everyone gets involved with it. It's a common language that we now start to speak. And what we end up doing here now is to ensure that product people are speaking to customers, are understanding, and if you've seen those canvases, right, it asks specific questions that says that, okay, have you identified the pains, right? So these are all the pains. Have you done it? It's a great checklist for any product person to have a look at it. Like, okay, I don't know this, right? While I understand this is the solution, but I don't understand XYZ, right? And whether I've understood the jobs, pains, and gains of a customer. Uh, that to me is where understanding the customer profile is what is a step forward towards that platform thinking, where we say we have an understanding that now this is our customer profile. So instead of going solution first, it's now just understanding this is my customer profile. This is what we're trying to solve. And then from there to say that, okay, now this is how we can build a platform that is scalable and move forward from there.
Speaking Anna's language in product marketing here, all these customer profiles and love it.
Sure.
Um,
So, well, I do have a question about that. So, you said you have to make an effort to get everyone to speak the same language. In
Yeah.
prepping for this interview, in your prep deck, it said you experienced what you would call a threat, or people with the feeling of a threat. What was it like encountering folks who weren't speaking the language, and what have you done to help get over that hump?
So I think initially, right? So an example I can give is this, right? So if a customer, if we see in the market that there is, and which is happening today, where people want to start building out their own UI and UXs, right? So when we talk about financial institutions or other fintechs, etc., okay, they want a payments platform at the back, but they want to build their own UI and UXs because that's their USP. That is what differentiates them in the market. Now, there are two ways of approaching this, right? One way is to just say that, okay, the salespeople or somebody knows this, or the marketing team knows this, and all they go to the product guy and the development guys is like, hey guys, build APIs, right? And these guys just really don't know why they're building these APIs. They're like, no, no, just build the APIs and just get it done. The second approach, of course, is to say, guys, the the these customers are looking for their own UI and UX. They want it to be their USP. What can we use to achieve this? And the answer can be APIs, the answer can be BPM, etc., right? So there can be various technology tools that we can come in as a set, and we can move this forward. So the first style of communication is abrasive. It's a little threatening, right? So it says that, oh, build APIs. So then the UI UX team looks and goes like, okay, so are you trying to make us redundant, or what's going on? And it's not clear, right, as to why we're doing this. What I've seen in my experience is that actually embracing technology, all it means is that people can do more, right? So rather than saying that they can learn more, they can do more. So rather than saying that, oh, I'm going to be redundant, the piece of this customer centricity is what galvanizes people together, right? So I haven't met any operations developer, product person that says that, oh, I'm not going to solve this customer pain point, right? So they don't want to build something and keep it in their laptops. They actually want it in front of the customer. And the simple thing for me is that, okay, let's show them that what challenges the customers are facing.
Yeah, as our VP of engineering often says, if you don't enjoy solving problems all day long, especially for other people, then you might not be in the right business of building software.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, change is hard, right? I think that's what you're kind of touching on here, and it's like kind of how to predict what is the future going to look like for where we're going. Like, have
Hmm.
you kind of seen that any sort of defining vision or being more transparent with strategy, those sorts of things have made that any easier?
I think it has made it a little bit more scalable. The people are now um, open to understanding why technology transformations are needed. That's one. Number two, one of the biggest thought process that we are driving through is that transformation is there's no end goal for this, right? So transformation sometimes is an abrasive term. It's an ongoing process, right? So my goal and my aim within the organization is to ensure that there is a method for everybody for now and in the future to think about how things are changing in the market, and not to be overwhelmed by it, but actually just put it in a structure and then say that, okay, so today these are new things that have come in. Leave that aside for 1 second. This is our structure that talks about this is the customer. This is how we're going to solve their challenges. Now let's see in our toolkit, in our tool set, and which is where providers like Stoplight, for example, providers like the AWS is yours, etc. Right? There's so many organizations, great organizations out there to help us. But if we don't define what these challenges are and how we want to particularly approach this, none of these organizations can particularly help us, right? So for me, the underlying piece in a nutshell would be is that keep the customer in mind, And I really like, for example, Simon Sinek's way of talking about an infinite game, right? So there is this. It's not a finite end goal, right? So we need to keep moving forward, keep trudging forward, and keep moving along.
Yeah, it always makes me think. I worked in the manufacturing sector for a while, and they did all this kind of lean manufacturing stuff, and we do these Kaizen workshops, right? And like
Right.
Kaizen, the Japanese word is basically constant improvement, right? And I think the mindset that goes with it, that like it's not that anyone's doing anything wrong, we can just always do better.
Hmm.
I think some of that kind of Kaizen spirit is in what a lot of these transformation efforts are all about. Um, you know, I'll admit here, I think for listeners, they might be reaching the point of going, this is a lot of fuzzy, what is transformation, right? Like, what exactly are we talking about? So, like, when you look at, especially in kind of engineering circles, what are the kind of specific behaviors or kind of changes in approach, that you're looking for or that you've seen work well?
Okay. I think the first thing is, and if we actually do an analogy along with like systems, right? Uh, an API is a great example, right? So APIs are uh, consistent ways of communicating between systems, right? Similarly, now if we take that into the real world, having consistent ways of communicating between people is extremely important, because that consistency and that discipline needs to be designed, right? So today we take language as as something that is, yeah, it's a given. You know English, I know English, so we're going to understand each other, which isn't necessarily true. Which is where, for me, from a transformation standpoint, the first thing that I had to come in and do was to see how people are communicating across the organization and whether there's a design. There wasn't, and I've seen this across a lot of organizations. Right, their communication designs uh, are pretty much non-existent across a lot of them. Right, um, so the first thing that I worked on was to say that, okay, if we're communicating a business idea, this is the format, this is how you go about it, these are the rules. Right, if you're communicating like a service issue, this is the format, this is how these are the rules, right? So the first thing for me was set up a clear communication design across the organization. uh, then the second thing is to tell everyone that, look, just because there's the word transformation in my title does not mean that every room that we're entering I'm trying to transform. So because as coming to your point, right, they people can think about this and say that, oh, am I doing something wrong, right? And that's not the case. Uh, it was fine for when you did it. It worked, and that's the reason why we're having this conversation, that we can be better. If that person hadn't taken, let's say, for example, certain shortcuts, or even in terms of technical debt, like, so taken on certain technical debt, taken certain shortcuts, even in product builds, uh, for that short term to just grab that business, we wouldn't be even having this conversation, right? So it's like, I'm more than happy. I have work and I have a job because you guys took those calls, got the business in, and now we're just trying to improve it. Right? That's it. So um, I think that message going out to everybody, right? Is that we're fine. We're just getting better, and uh, structuring the language in which these messages go out, I think, is extremely important, and I think would be the first thing from a transformation standpoint, or this is the first thing that I did that I see working, um, that I think every organization should think about.
Another element I've seen before, having been involved in some of these, transformational efforts, is that you get kind of organizational siloing that cuts down these communication channels. But where the rubber meets the road and the problem really emerges is that code isn't being shared effectively. So I'm curious, sort of inner sourcing approaches, or just kind of different ways of providing code sharing and kind of cutting down on duplication of effort. Is this sort of a practical theme that you've seen?
It's something that we all want to aspire and get to, right? I have so whenever I sit with the board and CEO and everyone goes like, oh, this person's doing this and this person's doing this, actually the same thing. Like, yes, I understand, but at that point in time, they needed to get certain things done, and this is what happened, right? So and to touch to your point about silos, right? So my personal view here is it depends on how the silo is structured. So if the silo becomes self-sufficient, and we have those pockets within the organization, right, where there's the product, technology, ops, and network security, everybody's there, right? They really don't need anybody else, and they can function and work, and they keep the customer happy because deliveries are quicker, everything moves faster, and they're able to move with speed. So the way I look at it is silos aren't necessarily bad. There are pitfalls or risks or challenges, and so to touching to your point, um, and this is what we're working on and going forward, which is where to say that okay, the idea is not to necessarily cut down on silos. The reason why silos start to become a little dangerous is when there's no communication. And so the idea would be is to try and target how does communication come out as quick as possible from that one little silo to the next, right? So we can potentially then using technology, and that's one of the main reasons why something like Stoplight is we bought into that, because from a structure perspective, um, I'm more than happy for people to be self sufficient and to be able to deliver quick things out into the market. I don't really believe in a lot of hierarchies, but at the same time, and given today's technological world, right? So uh, we need to equip, and I'm working on equipping the entire teams to be able to communicate as soon as possible, rather than to say that, oh, I need to break down the silos. So yeah, so that is my approach towards this code sharing, and trying to avoid rework as much as possible.
So I have to add, first of all, I haven't put Sachin up to putting in these stoplight plugs. You know me, I'm not a shill here, but um, and I would also call out. I mean, I think some of the things that you're talking about, you're talking about kind of functions, right? And there's nothing wrong with being organized around function. For me, it's like if a silo becomes like a power center, and that creates friction with other power centers, right? And kind of power dynamics, and just being honest about the situation. That's really like that's where things can break down, and you just have dysfunction. And to me, it's like it's not, do product and engineers talk perfectly? No, never. Right? Like they're never going. Designers and engineers speak a different language, for instance, right? Like it's fine that we have functions, and that we have, kind of boxes that we put those things in. But to me, it's about breaking down those kind of, weird power dynamics, and getting everyone collaborating more. But anyways, just my take.
Yeah, fair enough. Fair enough. Yeah, yeah, makes sense.
I'd like to thank you here for, uh, sometimes I think, folks come on to the podcast and feel like, we need to show how we've got it all together and we've got everything perfect. And I really love that you're being transparent about, hey, we're on a journey here, man. There's a lot to do, and some things we're still aspiring, we're still working on. So, I mean, when you look at it, and I know you already said this is a never ending thing, but how far kind of along the journey are you guys? Is this still early stages? How kind of complete or comprehensive do you feel like you are at this point?
So yeah, so one thing about me is that I'm never satisfied. So I'm constantly in my mind. I'm like I'm still on day one. But we've been I think we've been embarking on this journey for it's been almost 2 years now, where we consciously took this decision, right? So unconsciously things were happening, right? Like where we were saying that okay, we were being reactive to market forces, and we were being reactive to what a customer is saying or what people are saying, etc. Right? But I think 2 years ago, we're just taking this call. So this was right before COVID, so 2 3 years now actually. So we're taking COVID's just melded time a little bit. So uh, so 3 years ago we had taken this call and we said that okay, we need to consciously look at how we're doing these communications. We need to consciously look at how we're approaching technology, right? So because prior to that, we had like these pockets, right? So we had a pocket that was working on cloud. There's another pocket working on AI. Someone else working on something else. There was one that was working on in-memory processing. Someone else was building their own in-memory processing stacks and things like that, right? It was like when I still take stock of like the number of things people have done, I'm like, we've got some really brilliant guys who have like gone and like tried to do things that I wouldn't even dare like touching and saying that, oh, you got to do this. Like they've just gone and done it. Um, but yeah, the approach was it was slightly reactive. So 3 years ago, like, nah, we got to be a little bit more proactive about what we're investing in and how this technology change will take place.
All right. So if you've ever listened to the show before, and don't worry, I don't assume that you have, the most common thing that we'll always kind of poke at here is like, all right, you got 3 years hindsight now. It sounds like you got kind of a lot of irons in the fire. There's a lot going on with, trying to drive change. Um, what kind of wisdom would you pass on to other folks in terms of someone listening going, that's a lot. Like, where would I start? Where would be the most sensible place to start thinking about kind of making a transformational change?
So, so for me, I think the initial start, at least for me, it was myself, right? So just like sit down one day, just look through my week and see that how much am I reacting to, right? So how many things am I reacting to? What's coming my way? And how am I doing this reaction, right? Is it just off the cuff things? Is it things we go like, okay, very quickly, like, oh no, do this, do this, do this, like things on the fly, or how much of it is actually planned? Right. So from a transformation journey, I think the initial thing to look at is the mindset that we approach this transformation with. Uh, One example, right? While I was in product, I was always thinking of everything should be perfect, right? Like system, once things are live, it should just work smoothly. There should be no challenges. We will have the right team in place. Anything happens, blah, 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 right? Uh, we all know in reality that's not how life works. And for me, accepting that was one of a big transformation for myself, right? It's okay to have technical debt. It is okay for certain people to have taken those shortcuts. This is the nature of the business, right? For me, I have seen this with certain other organizations. The people who don't accept that there's this technical debt and things that are needed, they spend a lot of time admiring a problem, right? So it would just be like, wow, what a beautiful problem, right? And then like, when are we going to talk about solving this, right? And this is something. For us, we're like, I'm just much more happier taking on that technical debt and taking on those aspects and that mindset shift to say it's fine, it's okay, let's move, let's go forward. That was one of my transformations that I needed to do. So I would say anybody listening to this, just think about like where is that mindset shift potentially needed. Maybe someone's absolutely perfect and absolutely suited for the role. For me, I had to really introspect before I started to talk about how I can work and help with the organization.
I love it. It sounds like the 12 steps of a change junkie, right? Like, have you gotten to the part where you made amends for all the past transgressions? No, I'm just kidding.
And that's
um,
no, not yet.
no,
It's just
I
learning.
love that though. I love the introspection and that it is about the mindset, and I think that's the bit that I've certainly seen, and a lot of smart folks have talked about, that it's like it's how you think about problems, right? And I love that you're calling out that sometimes just admitting there's a problem and admitting that everybody has problems like this, and it's kind of normal when you're building software, and it's
Yeah,
like what you do about it that counts, right? So super
yeah.
cool. Well, Sachin, feels like a good place to wrap up. Any other words of wisdom or things you want to highlight for us?
Oh well, I think like while I've plugged in a lot about stoplights, so what
Thanks.
I would yeah what I would like to put in as well is that one of the reasons why this journey and we embarked on this journey, we're actually launching our platform, our payments as a service platform, this September. And we've got a couple of large financial institutions that are going live with it. One's already live, and another one that's going live with it as well. So to your point about where we are in the journey from a platform standpoint, we're very close. We're almost there. So,
That's
but
awesome.
yeah, it's just the beginning.
Very cool. Well, yeah, I think by the time this actually goes live, it'll probably be around the same time. So we'll get the link from you by then, because I won't ask you for it now, because I know how that goes. There's probably a war over what the link will be.
Yeah, perfect.
Cool. Well, I really appreciate it, Sachin, and thanks again as always, Anna.
All right.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thanks for having me.
API Intersection podcast listeners are invited to sign up for Stoplight and save up to $650. Use the code INTERSECTION10 to get 10% off a new subscription to Stoplight Platform Starter or Pro. Take a look at this episode's description for more details.
Thanks for listening. If you have a question you want to ask, look in the description of whichever platform you're viewing or listening on, and there should be a link there so you can go submit a question, and we'll do our best to find out the right answer for you.